want to have some water handy, especially I think most of you are in New York, and it's been kind of a tough day for many of our throats and eyes and voices. My microphone wasn't working today, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me sufficiently well. And also gather a few blankets if you haven't already done that. And we're going to start, because I've been thinking a lot today about breathing, needless to say, we're going to start in sort of a semi-restorative pose. But if you don't have prompts, just know that you could just start sitting or lying down comfortably. But if you take a towel or a yoga blanket, I'm going to use a yoga blanket because it's easier to see, and my towels, I noticed today, have a lot of strings attached to them. So what we're going to do is take a blanket or a towel and fold it so you have a long shape here, a long rectangle that is narrower than the broadest part of your back. And place that on your mat or on the floor lengthwise. And where the head end of you is going to be, have another blanket or a beach towel up at the top, and you'll see it makes a T shape. So you have the long vertical blanket, and this is a towel folded into, let me show you this shape, like a small rectangle. So you have your capital letter T. So when you come to lie on this in a moment, your butt is going to be on the floor or the mat in front of the lower end of your prop, and then you're going to lie down. Because just for reference, I'm 5'2", so my head lands here. But if you're taller, you don't want your head hanging off the end. So that's why we have that blanket there. And just know that even though I'll be lying flat, if you feel you need a little more height under your head, gather that in. If you're practicing in a room with a lot of bolsters and a lot of props, you can bolster your legs if you wish. I'm not going to do that. So when you're ready, you're going to sit about ½ an inch in front of the prop if you're using it. And then you're going to use your hands with, knees bent, feet on the floor. You're going to use your hands to lower yourself down. And then you're going to rearrange your prop. So if you feel like, for example, let's say you're my height, your head is on the blanket, and you still feel you want to go a little higher, grab that second blanket you left there and take it under your head. I'm going to leave mine here because my voice will project better with my head higher. But just know that you can have your head and your heart at the same level, lying flat. If you don't have a big pile of bolsters to put under your legs, take your feet wide and rest the knees against each other. And just allow yourself to be super relaxed here. What we don't want to feel, and I start with the don'ts sometimes because we want to get rid of the don'ts, right? So we feel comfortable. You don't want to feel like your low back arch is overly arched. So just make sure your low back curve feels like it's normal orientation. If it feels overly arched, grab another towel, pick up your butt, and slide a blanket under there. And when you're perfectly comfortable, close your eyes, lengthen your arms out by your side, turn the palms up, which will encourage your shoulders to soften down to the earth. Without judging your breath, just breathe naturally. With your eyes closed, objectively notice your breath without judgment. Notice if your breathing is clear, if it's a little stuffy, if you have congestion in the nose or the throat. So just notice what you're working with. And just being here on this prop situation, you may notice that you have a little gift of a lift in your upper chest. So the placement of this blanket, this is a supported simple back bend. And if you're familiar with the yoga pose Cobra, when we do Cobra, we're on our belly. I'm going to do ceiling Cobra. We're on our belly with our palms down and we're opening up the chest. This simple pose, just a blanket underneath your upper back, brings that same opening into the chest that a small Cobra pose does. Except we're not using our muscles to hold the pose. So many of us can stay in it a little bit longer. So notice that opening or that little buoyancy in your chest. Don't try and force anything there. And I'm going to take you on a mini breath tour. Usually I start with some stretching, but I thought since many of us have had challenging days here with the smoky air, I thought we'd start this way. Bring your awareness to your upper chest. And if you like, you can place a hand there for reference so you have that sense of touch, but you don't have to place the hand there if you don't wish. And for the next few breaths, just notice the gentle rising and fall of the chest. It may be pretty subtle, it may be very noticeable, and don't try and breathe harder or differently to create more movement. Just notice the subtle connection of breath and movement naturally. Then the next time you inhale, invite your breath to be a smidgen longer. Maybe just slow down your breath a little bit so you're not taking a bigger breath, you're just dwelling in that inhale. And notice if you feel more obviously any sense of expansion in the front of you, in the upper chest. And exhale and let that go. And then bring one hand to your belly. It could be the same hand or the other hand. And with your hand resting on your tummy, again, just notice with natural breath, not changing anything. If you feel your belly rise with the inhale and descend as you exhale. You can also place two hands there if you like. Just notice. Don't restrict the expansion. We can be very judgmental about our belly, so just let that belly expand naturally. Don't push into the breath. Experience your breath. Now, with your awareness still on your abdomen, the next time you inhale, slow down your breath a little bit so you can maybe dial into the movement a little bit more. And just notice if you feel any lift or expansion in the belly as you inhale, and as you exhale, if that retracts. All of this is a normal core reflex, a whole reflex in the whole body, whole torso. When we inhale, things shift to allow for the breath to come in, for the lungs to inflate. So there's expansion. And as you exhale, there's like a recoil where everything kind of draws toward the center. And in yoga and other methodologies, there's a lot of ways to describe it. So you're probably familiar with it. Now let's bring our awareness to the whole front. So take one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. Remember, you don't need to use your hands at all. And just for the next few breaths, just notice how you feel the expansion of your front body. And notice if belly and chest rise up about the same time, or if one rises up and you don't feel the other so much. And again, it's not to correct, it's just to stay present with your body and to enjoy it. Enjoy your breath. The next time you inhale without force, just focus your awareness on your inhale, maybe a little bit more, and slow down your inhale and feel the expansion in your front body. And release that as you exhale. And then take a couple of more breaths here. And then take your arms back to your side. So when we breathe, we expand front and back and side to side, also top to bottom. So we focused on the front. For the next few breaths, just place your arms in a comfortable position and notice if you feel any expansion, any sensation of expansion in your upper back and even in your mid back. So do a few breaths here. And just notice if you feel, don't try and force it, any expansion. So as the chest rises in front, the back correspondingly expands. We also expand in the lower part of our body. Notice if you feel any sensation in the back. You might want to think of yourself as an ice cream sandwich with chocolate cookie front, chocolate cookie back. And as you inhale, those two horizontal planes move away from each other, away from the filling. And then as you exhale, there's a slight drawing together toward the ice cream. And now probably if you're like me, you're thinking about ice cream. Take a few more moments here to sense your breathing in your back body. And then setting aside the ice cream sandwich, bring your awareness to the sides of your rib cage. You can place your arms like slow with your elbows down and your hands just not squeezing, gently wrapped around your side ribs. Take a few inhales here without changing anything in your breath. And just notice if you feel any sense of expanding into your width, right and left. When you're ready, take a slightly more focused breath by lengthening the breath out a little bit, slowing it down, and notice then if you're more likely to notice this subtle sensation that happens with every breath, this expansion into the width of your rib cage. You can bring your awareness up into your armpits, so higher than your hands, and notice as you breathe if you feel any expansion widthwise across that area. You can also bring your awareness down toward the waistline. And notice if you feel a subtle expansion there as you breathe. Widening as you inhale and as you exhale, coming back toward the center. Let's put all those dimensions together. As I said, there's another set of dimensions, so we're just going to focus on these for now. The front of you, the back of you, and your two sides. You can place your hands anywhere, including not on your body at all. Make sure you're still comfortable, that your head is comfortable, that your back doesn't feel overarched. And when you're ready, take a slightly longer or slower breath. And as you breathe, notice if and where you sense this natural expansion of the body on inhale and the receding, the withdrawing as you exhale. And then just take a few natural breaths without changing anything, letting your body be heavy, letting your shoulders relax. When your arms are by your side, the palms down will enable the shoulders to open more. Just going back to what I mentioned in the beginning about Cobra, we're broad across the collarbones here. So you might not be feeling stretch because you just have kind of a thin layer of fabric underneath us, but you might feel this nice release and opening. And actually what might be nice is just to take your fingertips and bring them to the inner parts of your collarbones. And then just slide your hands outward along your collarbones or right below the collarbones. You don't want to get too much into the neck, then you'll feel uncomfortable. It just feels so nice. That's just a little tweak. And if you like, one more time, breathe into all your dimensions without force. Allow your inhale to be nice and slow, so maybe you can feel the sense of expanding in the front and or the back and or the sides or all around you. Take a few more breaths here. When you're ready, you're going to roll to one side. It doesn't matter right or left. You're going to come to the side you're most comfortable on. So if you have an injury on your right side, you would lie on your left. And you come to your side and you can either sit up a little bit and take that blanket out of the way, or you could reach behind you and take it out of the way. And rest on your side for a few breaths here. And you might want to take that blanket that you had underneath you and place it in between your inner knees and your inner ankles. And just be comfy here. You on your side, you may need a little more height under your head. And let's take this moment to visit our back, since we're not lying on it, and bring your awareness to your back body one more time. And just notice if you feel any sensation of your back expanding as you inhale, the lungs inflating. So the chest has to shift a little bit in its shape to accommodate the expansion of the inhale. Feels so nice. And then when you're ready, come to sitting, place your top palm down, push there to initiate your lift, and then get the top hand underneath you so you have both hands to help bring you up to sitting. Take any comfortable seat that you like. You can take cross-legged, you can maybe take a blanket under your hips to help you sit tall and comfortably. And ensure that you're sitting evenly on your hip bones, so you're not leaning to one side. If you can see yourself in the Zoom thingy, you might get some feedback from your own device that you can see if you're sitting tall. And just take your arms out to the side so you're kind of in an A frame with the top of your head being the top of your A. Your fingertips are down on your mat, and again, you don't have to sit cross-legged, it's not comfortable for anyone. So we just want to come to a nice tall seat here and make sure you feel lifted in the chest, not collapsed, that you want to feel your shoulders relax. And notice if that time you spent on the mat, we were down there for quite a while, has increased maybe your sense of spaciousness in your upper chest. Now from here, keep both sitting bones anchored, but take your right fingertips, maybe a few more, an inch maybe out to the right more. Lift up, I'm sorry, your left, I'm gonna mirror you. So I'm doing, yeah, you're gonna take your right hand out to the side and then lift your other arm up in the air. And then take a small side bend on your right side, shoulder to hip. Just a really small one. Your arm up top there can be relaxed, it can be straight, whatever feels better for your shoulder. So we're opening up one side, condensing the other. So hopefully as you're tipped over to your right, you feel a little opening in your left side, and maybe you can feel a little bit of that expansion there. Make sure you're not tipping over to your right side, that your left sitting bone is down, both legs are relaxed. And then as you inhale, turn that right palm up. If you like, you can join the hands together overhead, slide them back down. We're going to do the second side, but first, if you want to change the cross of your legs or change the position of your seat altogether, do that. Take your arms out by your side, creepy crawl, just like maybe an inch. Your left arm out a little bit more. Make sure that right sitting bone is still down. If you're not sure, great, bring your hands to your hip crease and just make sure to anchor that down. Take your your other arm up. Inhale here and exhale, maybe come a little bit further, but make sure your sitting bones are down. We're not looking for the biggest stretch here. We're just looking to feel the opening in the sides of our ribcage. You can look down, forward, or up. Make sure your left shoulder is relaxed as you expand on your right side. Take a breath or two here, breathing into the side of your body. And then come back up again. If you were sitting cross-legged all that time, take your legs out in front of you and just kind of roll your legs out a little bit and point and flex your feet. We're going to come to all fours, tabletop position. So if you need padding under your knees, get a blanket ready for that. And then you can proceed doing cat-cow the way you like to do it. I'll demonstrate two ways. The more familiar way, well, not familiar, but the classic cat-cow is as you inhale, you take a small back bend. That's the cow. And as you exhale, you round forward like a cat. My cat was very stubborn, by the way. I had a whole blanket out for him. He was laying on it. And then he walked out of the room right before the camera came on. This is a great way of practicing a small back bend and a small forward bend. However, if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, or if you just notice that your upper back seems maybe more rounded than it was when you were younger, you would inhale, and that part is the same. So the cow is the same, but the cat, instead of rounding the spine, you would slide your hips back to your heels. Keep your low back curve normal. Don't let it collapse like this. Keep your low back curve normal and slide your hips back to your heels. This will give you a forward bend without the deep flexion in the front of the rib cage. You can alternate the two. I find since the osteoporosis is not an issue for me, in, hopefully it never will be. So I don't have to do it other way, but I like to mix it up. And just for the next few movements, as you do this, just notice the movability or maybe the stiffness in your spine. Do you feel the collarbones and the ribs tip forward a little bit on the inhale, for example? If you're doing the traditional cat, can you feel your back stretching and the shoulder blades moving away from each other as you forward bend? If you're doing the other version, as you draw your hips back, you can lift your fingertips, up, and see if you can feel the length between your armpits and your hips. The next time you're coming to your forward bend, we're all going to come to child's pose. So you may want to take your knees a little wider, have a blanket or some other props. Home props are often the best props. Slide your hips back to your heel and take enough padding under your forehead that you're comfortable. You don't have to have your hips to your heels by any means. You can also grab another padding. If you're near your couch, you can pull a whole cushion off the couch and take it in between your calves and your thighs. You can see probably maybe pulling this up into my knee creases and then fold forward here. So just find a comfortable, relaxing position. I'm going to sit up in a moment because you won't be able to hear me with my head down. There we go. And what we're doing here is we're in the forward bend. We're holding the forward bend because we're staying in a little bit. We've added some support, but also bring your awareness to your upper back. Don't change a thing. Don't need to change anything, but just notice, again, if you feel any sensation of the movement of breath in your upper back. Sometimes I like to imagine that as I inhale, I'm literally breathing underneath my shoulder blades, sliding the breath under there. Luxuriate in your breath. Don't force the breath. When you're ready to release, come back to all fours. You may want to stretch out the backs of your legs a little bit after sitting on them. So slide back into table pose at any time while I do these movements on the mat on all fours. If you feel like taking a down dog, if that's in your practice, you can do that. Tuck the toes of your right foot under. Stretch that right leg back. Keep your hips even from right to left. Lift your collarbones just a little bit so you're not like down, like so. And feel that nice opening in the back of your leg. And then switch and do the other leg. And also getting a good tuck in your ankle so you're getting maybe a little stretch in the back of the calf. That could feel nice. And then repeat that if you like. Taking one leg out, maybe holding it there for a breath. And the other leg out. And if you haven't done dog yet, and you wish to, you usually want a little more space between your knees and your wrists. Tuck the toes under, inhale, you could toss in another small back bend here. And as you exhale, lift up, fill your low back, soften your heels down toward the mat, and take 1 or 2 or 3 calm breaths here. Invite your heels to surrender to gravity. Invite your head to also surrender to gravity. Make sure your pointer finger and the knuckle it is attached to are anchored down. And then when you're ready, come back again and return to a seated position. Get padding back underneath your bum, if you like. Sit in any comfortable position and clasp your hands together and take your hands behind your head. Do a few movements where you bring your elbows toward each other and then you separate them. And they don't have to go a far distance. So just find a comfortable movement for your shoulder situation. Nice and easy. Then keeping that motion, continuing that nice and slow, Notice if you feel on your back the movement of your shoulder blades. When your elbows come away from each other, the shoulder blades slide toward the spine. And as the elbows come forward, the shoulder blades are moving away from the spine. You may not feel that, doesn't mean it's not happening, but if you have restrictions and tightness in the muscles of your upper back, that could be interfering with the sliding and gliding of your shoulder blades for sure. Tension can do that too. The next time your elbows come away from each other, we're going to do a similar thing to what we did at the start. We're going to start now tipping a little bit. We're going to do like that side bend, elbow to hip. Except instead of holding it in a stretch, you're going to go a few times back and forth, nice and slow. And as you're doing this, notice if you have a lot more smoothness on one side than the other, or if one side feels like you really can hardly get over there. And again, we're not trying to do the biggest, we're just trying to keep moving. And notice, and then come back to where you started. Change your hand position if you like. And then from here, just do one side. So take your right elbow toward your right hip and slide your head in your hand so it's looking down on that side. Make sure your left sitting bone is anchored and your left leg is relaxed. So you could breathe here into your opposite side, but you could also, again, just notice how easily or not you're able to tip on the side and feel opening on your left side. You might feel a little stuck on one side. Come back to center and second side. Now going to your left, elbow to hip. So that's the side we're tipping toward, but the side we're noticing the opening here. So we're really kind of just noticing the differences between, if there are any noticeable difference between the two sides. Turn your head to look down. And when you're ready, release, come back to center, stretch your arms wide, energize your fingertips in one direction. And in a sense, don't try and pull the fingertips out of the shoulders. Think of the fingertips and the shoulders, in a sense, moving in opposite directions. So the shoulder blades are still, the shoulders are relaxed. We don't want to feel like we're pulling the arms out of the sockets. And then just like I guess you could call it a helicopter. And by the way, arms no higher than your shoulders. Your arms don't have to be the same distance from the earth. Then you're just going to go like a little helicopter from side to side. Very small movement here. We are twisting in the upper part of the chest. If your arms get tired, put them down. You can just come down and just do the same movement without your arms out. And let your arms lead the movement if your arms are out, just a little bit from side to side, like a helicopter. Good. The next time you come back to center, lower your arms, relax your shoulders, keep your hands on the mat or on your lap, take a cleansing breath here, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Let's take a twist. We're going to start twisting to your right. So you can start by setting up your arms, right arm slightly behind you, and your left arm on the opposite thigh. Or instead of starting with the arms, which tends to sometimes pull us into a bigger twist than our body really can support on its own, you can also start with the arms lifted up, lots of space between your armpits and your hips, anchor your sitting bones down, inhale as you exhale. Twist first from your collarbone area, from your upper rib area, and then land the arms into the position. If you feel that your front arm is compressing your chest, especially since we're focusing on breath, maybe instead of holding your hand onto the opposite leg, is taking it on the same side leg. It tends to want to make you come out of the twist, but stay in the twist. I like to practice this sometimes with my hand on my ankle, because I'm twisted and I don't feel any compression in the chest, and especially when we are celebrating our breath this evening, and hopefully inside indoors, you're not encountering any congestion or unpleasantness in the air inside. Take a few breaths here. Twisting to your right, make sure both sitting bones are down. Just take a breath here, a few more breaths here, and you can notice, if you wish, how do you feel the breath moving in the back of you, and the sides of you, and the front of you, or you could just be here, be very present and still, so still that your mind isn't noticing anything about your breath. You're just present. When you're ready to release, inhale, float the arms up if you like. And then change your seat again. If you're cross-legged, just switch legs or just change into a different seat altogether. Set up your arms and twist, or using your core a little more. Inhale, lift your arms up, or you could take them out to the side like the helicopter arms that we did. And then take that small twist to the other side. One arm is going to come slightly behind you. And traditionally, the other arm is going to cross over to the opposite leg. Your front arm will do that. But maybe just for today, take the front arm on the same side leg, but don't let it pull you out of the twist, or take it on your shin or the front of your ankles. Find your sitting bones, relax your legs. When we twist, the side we're twisting away from, a lot of times, I'll exaggerate it here, that leg will tense up and lift. So make sure that back leg is nice and soft, and just enjoy just being present in this twist. Twists are mainly, among other things, of course, they're a beautiful movement for the spine, but twists tend to open up our back and our chest, especially if we have our arm across or if we're doing a fancy bind, is a little condensed. But here, notice the freedom of the breath in your back body, but also give that same freedom to the breath in the front of you. Soften your jaw, soften your gaze. Take one or two more breaths here. When you're ready, inhale with your arms high or low. Come back, drop your arms down, lift your chest up, and just bow your head slightly down, and just take a few breaths here. You do not have to remain in the seated leg position. Your legs sit there screaming. Take them out in front of you. Do whatever feels good. And then when you're ready, let's go to resting warrior. Sometimes this pose is called other things. So you're going to start with your feet on the floor in front of you. That sounds pretty good, right? Then you're going to draw the big toe side of your feet together, drop your legs out. This is Baddha Konasana. We're not doing that. We're just doing this as a setup. And then from here, leave your right leg where it is. But start moving your left leg away from you, and then turn that knee down. You may need to pull the leg a little bit or adjust. So you're going to turn that leg behind you. So I'm going to turn a little bit. So you're kind of in a pinwheel shape. I want you to see it from that angle. And have both ankles slightly flexed. If this isn't comfortable, you do not have to sit this way. You can also take a blanket underneath one knee or underneath the other inner thigh. So you're going to be tipping toward your right side, right? Inhale a breath here and exhale. Take a small twist here. So we're bringing in a twist situation in addition to what we're doing for our legs. And you can stay upright if this feels okay. If it feels okay, reach your fingers forward. And then, if you'd like to continue and bring this more into a seated forward bend, you would very carefully walk your hands forward. I suggest, for the purpose to not just this time, a lot of people do this with our chests all the way out here. So you know what, if you like that's fine. But I suggest keeping your spine in line with your front thigh. Instead, get a free cushion, and you can come down like so. You can take a blanket between your body and your thigh. You are compressing the front of you. So if that feels like it's blocking your breath and it doesn't feel so good, then don't do that. But again, here, we can experience maybe a little more completely, not only relaxation for the body, and we're doing nice things, hopefully nice things for the hips. If this position isn't comfortable, hopefully you did not take the position here. And then you can also lower your head down. Depends again, on how your hip feels about this whole thing. So for example, you can be down like this. And here you might get a nice sloping of the shoulder blades away from each other. So it's kind of a rounding of the spine, but we're not losing space in the front of our ribs, which is what happens when we do the cat. But here we omit that because we're nice and broad, but we're really expanding in the upper back. So feel free to lower your head. I'm going to stay lifted because my voice will be muffled, and surrender down here. Take a few breaths. If you love it, stay a little longer. If you don't like it, come out of it sooner. Your exit strategy when you're ready to come up is to place your palms down, push into your hands a little bit, bring your back leg forward, and come back to bound ankle position. Doesn't matter if your knees are up like this or down like that. And then you're going to be going in the other direction. So toe heel your right foot away from you and kind of kick, for want of a better word, just take that leg behind you so you have this pinwheel position. Let your ankles be gently flexed, have your hands on the mat, and take a twist, lining up the spine with your front thigh bone. So we get a little twisting action here, which is nice. And then as before, we can also add to this a forward bend. So you can walk your hands forward if you feel any discomfort, too much weight on the front hip. By the way, I guess get asked this sometimes when I've done this in class. Your back tushy, your back leg tushy is up in the air, just to clarify that in case you were wondering. And again, as you lower down, just make sure it's comfortable for every part of you. And then you can just rest here with your hands down and your head bowed. You can stay seated, lifted, if that's more comfortable, or you can come all the way down, get a whole bunch of props underneath your head, and let your head go. So we are compressing a little bit in the front of the body. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of folks come into it like this and take the torso behind the leg. But that doesn't work for everyone for other reasons. So choose what's better for you. And again, notice the expanse of your upper back here. Nice and broad, slightly curved from shoulder to shoulder, like a little, almost like a very subtle umbrella, with the spine being the highest part of the umbrella, getting a nice rounding here without decreasing the space in the front of your spine. When you're ready to release, palms down, push into the hands, but also lift up with the rest of you. And then just very slowly bring that leg forward. If you're comfortable in bound angle pose, we can certainly do that for a few moments. A nice way to make this more comfortable for many folks is to, I wasn't planning on going in this direction, but it just emerged, to take one of your blankets and open it up so it's pretty big. I don't even know if this is going to be big enough to show you here. So you want a really long, you know, like those snake things that you put under your, to block drafts. This is really not as long as it could be, but it'll do for demonstration. You rest it on top of your ankles, and then you take the ends underneath your shins. And we're not trying to force ourselves into any position. So if your knees are up here, they're up here. If you're uncomfortable, just sit in a comfortable seat. But this kind of binds the legs together. It's nice and soft because your ankles and legs are encased in this. So you might be able to be a little more comfortable in the pose by adding a bind, not with a traditional yoga strap, but with a nice soft blanket. And take a few breaths here. Again, if this is uncomfortable for your legs, just sit in another position that you like. Make sure your chest is lifted. Your legs are not forced at all. Your legs are comfortable. Your both sitting bones are down and anchored. Soften your gaze. If you're super comfortable in this pose and you would like to add a forward bend component to it, be my guest, it's not necessary, we're not gonna be here much longer, because I wanna get another twist in before Shavasana. So you can come forward if you like, but only if it suits you. If you feel very hunched up and very smushed, that's the official yoga term, if you feel like the spine in front is very smushed here, you're better off not coming into the forward bend. Take 1 or 2 more breaths, and then when you're ready, draw your thighs together, release your bind, and let's take 1 more twist, sitting the length of your mat. The only props you would need here is anything you would like to have under your seat to help you sit tall. So we don't want to be here, we want to be here. And that can be very challenging. It's nothing to feel bad about. Some of us, once we lose that tone in the front, sometimes this is our natural seat, especially if you're a teenager and you're texting all the time. So sit nice and tall and bend your right knee and draw the heel comfortably close to you, and just keep the left leg active enough so that it doesn't just flop over to the side. We want it a little active, so the knee is pointing up, the tops of your toes are looking up, the heel is pushing forward, but don't go crazy with this. Don't go crazy with making the leg really rigid. Just keep it active. We're going to be twisting to your right. Take your left hand onto your right shin, take your right arm up. Inhale, feel your chest expand and rise, and as you exhale, take a small twist to your right, lower your right arm down. Don't pull it behind you if you're not quite there yet. You can keep it next to you. Inhale again. As you exhale, see if you can wrap your collarbones and the upper part of your shoulder blades a little more to the right. So your arm behind you helps support you. It's like another spine, a second spine back there helping you to be upright. If you feel that your right leg starts tipping out, move the foot out a little bit to the right. So the knee stays pointing up. Both knees are pointing up to the ceiling. Close your eyes if you like. Bow your head slightly if you like. Make sure your shoulders are relaxed and soft. And just breathe here. I'm going to take about 3 breaths. Your 3 breaths might be someone else's 2 or someone else's 4. Breathe into your back, into your front, and into the sides of your ribcage. On your next inhale, unwind your spine. You can have one or both arms up or keep them low. Straighten your right leg out, paddle your legs a little bit, bend your left knee. It does not have to be close to you. The foot could be, your toes could be in line with your ankle, whatever works. Keep your right leg a little active now. Take your right hand to the left shin, left arm up. If you need to have it behind you to stabilize you from the start, that's perfectly fine. Inhale here, and as you exhale, take that shoulder girdle to the left. Maybe you need 2 breaths to set yourself up in the twist. Maybe you come into it with 1 breath, and as you're in the twist, you might find that your body kind of subtly on its own with your breath kind of settles into the twist and allows a little bit more wrapping in this case to your left side. Make sure both knees are pointing up. Both sitting bones are gently anchored to the earth. Take a few breaths here. When you're ready to unwind, you can do it with 1 or both arms up, but now we're near the end of class, so I just like to come out of the twist very leisurely. Stretch your legs, hopefully you have 2, but whatever. Stretch them out in front of you and paddle them around a bit. Now we started with a little bit of a propped pose. Usually I do the restorative pose at the end. So let's do one more thing here that uses props, which might be nice, especially if you are hoping for that. If you're ready to come to Shavasana, you could come to Shavasana right now and start that up. Otherwise, take a blanket or towel and fold it into a small rectangle. If you have yoga blocks, you can use your yoga blocks. We're gonna do a supported bridge. I think that will be a nice one more thing we can squeeze in here. So we're kind of making a soft version of this situation. It depends what you have on hand. So I'm gonna demo it with the blanket. So you have it within reach, you lie down. If you need support under your head, add that in. If you don't, don't. And then you're gonna press gently into your feet just enough to take your two blocks. You take, if you're using the blocks, you would slide in one from the right, one from the left. And you would drop your hips down, make sure that your low back curve reach behind you. You want to feel that whole lumbar spine here. We don't want to have the block or the blanket in our lumbar spine. And if some of your tush is not on the blanket, that's okay. We want the bony structure of our hips on the blanket here. Take your arms by your side, palms up or palms down. Add some support under your head if you feel you need that. If you feel you don't need it, then you don't need it. Just take a few breaths here. Make sure your knees don't waddle out to the side. If they tend to do that, then take your feet wider and tip your knees toward each other. Or just have them parallel. So this is a very gentle, supported way of doing bridge pose, also a back bend. And without changing your breath in any way, maybe just for the next few breaths, just notice, like a very detached explorer of the realm of your body. If you feel what you feel sensation-wise as you breathe, maybe in the front of you, maybe in the sides, maybe in the back. And don't force the breath to be anything different. If you like, you can bring your awareness to the front of you for one breath and notice what you feel there as you inhale. You can bring your awareness and your hands, if you wish, to the sides of your ribcage and notice what you feel there as you breathe. Not trying to force or create movement that you don't feel, because it's happening whether you feel it or not. And a lot of our back might be lifted here, but you also might want to bring your awareness to your back body, whether it's on the mat or in the air. And as you breathe, notice the sensation of expansion on inhale, and as you exhale, not so much, it's the expansion, I think, is more noticeable. As we exhale, it's more of a rebound toward the core rather than a dwindling type of feeling. So before, if you're not in Shavasana yet, that's fine. But if you'd like to do one more thing here, you can lift one leg up, see how it feels. If you don't like it, don't keep it there. And then you can lift the other leg there. You could keep it there. If you don't want to, don't. So you can keep one leg up for a few breaths and then add the other. Or if it felt good and if you found a sweet spot where both legs could be up, they don't need to be straight. Just make sure if you take your legs up, when you do this, that the weight, I want to show you something, doesn't come back like this. So we don't want to have the upper part of our hips digging into this back end of the prop and the front of our tush, or actually I guess it's the bottom, lifting up a little bit. You want to keep that bowl of your hip structure on this table. You can do this only if it feels good. You can bend your knees. Sometimes I like to do a little cross on the ankles. Take one or two or three more breaths here. Only when you're ready, if your legs are up, lower your feet down one at a time. When you're ready. So savor each position as we move out of this. When you're ready, press into your feet and slide your blocks, towel, or blanket away. And just notice how your back meets the mat. You might feel a lot of contact with your back body and the mat. And then from here, I'm going to segue to Shavasana, deep relaxation. If there's any other little movement you want to do before Shavasana, do that. You might want to have some padding underneath your head. I'll just come down for a moment. You may need to sip a little water first. If you have a lot of props on hand, you can, for example, stack them like so and take them underneath your legs. Or you can just come to Shavasana with no props at all, just sprawled on your mat. So just make sure you're comfortable. Don't come too high with the head. Again, I'm just doing this so my voice is not completely faded. Cover yourself with a blanket if you like. Then give yourself the best gift that yoga can offer you, which is full and complete relaxation. You don't need to focus on your breath. You don't need to move. You don't need to place your body in any specific way. Just place your body comfortably and surrender to stillness. The breath roll in and out. Subtly, peacefully, effortlessly. Give your body and your mind the gift of a few moments of stillness. This also helps to stimulate the part of our nervous system that helps us to heal and digest, that lowers blood pressure. Let your legs be heavy and your mind quiet. Keep your eyes closed and your gaze within. Let your breath breathe you. Your body find comfort. calm breath, calm body, calm mind. Calm mind, calm. Remember this feeling of calmness that you've created through your practice, and know that you can do this on your own, with or without any kind of movement practice beforehand. When you're ready to release from Shavasana, first bend your knees and anchor your feet to the floor. Make your moves slow, subtle, and deliberate. And each time you shift position, that is, if you choose to shift, you may want to just stay in Shavasana for another 20 minutes. When you're ready, ease your way over to one side, pause there, each position, savor it. And only when and if you are ready, you can come back to sitting, if you like. Before we draw our practice to a close, let's take one cleansing breath together, in through the nose and out through the mouth as noisily as you like. Doesn't have to be your biggest inhale by any means. Join your palms, lift your chest slightly up, bow your head slightly down. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace. Namaste. May your pathways and your airways be clear and smooth until I see you again. Thank you so much.